I am Napoleon Bonaparte, Emperor of the French, master of Europe, architect of the modern world, though I began as merely a second son from a backwater island. They called me the Little Corporal, yet I commanded armies of 500,000 men. I rose from nothing to reshape a continent, wrote law codes that govern nations today, and fell from heights no man before me had ever reached. I proved that in an age of revolution, even emperors could be self-made. I was born in 1769 in Corsica, 1 year after France purchased our island from Genoa. My father, Charles Bonaparte, was minor nobility who quickly adapted to French rule, securing scholarships for his sons in French schools. I spoke Italian before French, dreamed of Corsican independence before French glory, yet fate would make me more French than the French themselves. At age 9, I was sent to military school in mainland France. A small foreign boy mocked for my accent and unusual name. While other cadets played, I devoured books on history, mathematics, and military strategy. I read every campaign of Alexander, Caesar, and Frederick the Great until their tactics became my own. Artillery became my specialty, the science of controlled destruction. The Revolution of 1789 changed everything. The old order crumbled, nobles fled or died, and suddenly merit mattered more than birth. I was 20 when the revolution began, a junior artillery officer in a world where advancement had always required centuries of noble breeding. Now, talent and ambition could create their own nobility. My moment came in 1793 at the siege of Toulon, where royalist forces had invited the British fleet into France's greatest naval base. I was 24, a captain of artillery assigned to a failing siege. I placed my cannons with mathematical precision, creating a crossfire that made the harbor untenable for British ships. Toulon fell in 3 days, and I was promoted to brigadier general. The Directory, France's revolutionary government, was weak, corrupt, and desperate for military victories to legitimize their rule. I understood that in revolutionary France, success on the battlefield translated to political power. While others debated ideology, I studied maps and planned campaigns that would make France master of Europe. In 1796, at age 26, I was given command of the Army of Italy, a ragged force unpaid for months, fighting Austrian and Piedmontese armies in the foothills of the Alps. I moved with unprecedented speed, defeating enemies in detail before they could unite against me. In 1 year, I transformed a demoralized rabble into Europe's most feared army and made myself the most famous man in France. My Egyptian campaign of 1798 was both military adventure and intellectual expedition. I brought not just soldiers, but scientists, historians, and artists to unlock the secrets of ancient civilization. Though Admiral Nelson destroyed my fleet at the Nile, I gained something more valuable than territory. I gained mystique. I became the general who walked among the pyramids, the modern pharaoh. Returning to France in 1799, I found the Directory collapsing under military defeats and economic chaos. The coup of 18 Brumaire was almost anticlimactic. I simply walked into power because France needed someone who could act decisively. At 30, I became first consul, effectively dictator of the French Republic. Austerlitz in 1805 was my masterpiece, the battle I called my Son of Glory. I faced the combined armies of Austria and Russia, commanded by their emperors personally. I deliberately weakened my right flank, invited attack, then crushed their assault with reserves hidden behind the Pratzen Heights. In one afternoon, I destroyed the Third Coalition and established French dominance over continental Europe. I crowned myself emperor in 1804, taking the crown from Pope Pius VII's hands to show that my authority came from my own achievements, not divine appointment. The ceremony was political theater designed to legitimize revolutionary France in the eyes of Europe's old monarchies. I was now Napoleon Forbes, equal to any Habsburg or Bourbon. I created the continental system to strangle British trade, closing all European ports to British goods. If I could not invade Britain across the Channel, I would destroy her economically. For a time, it worked. British exports plummeted, and European industries protected by my blockade flourished under French leadership. Between campaigns, I created the Napoleonic Code, a legal system based on reason, equality, and merit, rather than ancient privilege. Every man was equal before the law, property rights were sacred, and careers were open to talent regardless of birth. This code would spread across Europe and eventually to Louisiana, Quebec, and dozens of other territories. I standardized weights and measures, established public education systems, created the modern administrative state with professional civil servants selected by examination rather than purchased office. While my enemies saw only a conqueror, I was building the infrastructure of the modern world. My marriage to Marie Louise of Austria in 1810 was pure statecraft. I divorced Josephine, the love of my life, to secure a Habsburg princess and legitimize my dynasty. When she bore me a son, Napoleon II, I believed I had secured the Bonaparte succession for generations. The old Europe had accepted the upstart Corsican as family, but Spain became my Spanish Ulcer, a grinding guerrilla war that consumed 300,000 French troops and turned Europe against my methods. For the first time, I was not fighting professional armies but entire populations. The romantic age of warfare died in Spanish villages, where civilians fought French soldiers with kitchen knives and religious fury. Russia in 1812 was my fatal overreach. I led 600,000 men, the largest army ever assembled, across the Niemen River, intending to force Tsar Alexander back into my continental system. But the Russians traded space for time, burning their own cities, rather than give me the decisive battle I needed. Moscow burned for 6 days, leaving me master of ash and emptiness. The retreat became catastrophe. Winter, disease, starvation, and constant Cossack attacks destroyed my Grande Armée. Of 600,000 men who entered Russia, perhaps 30,000 returned in fighting condition. I had gambled an empire and lost. The Battle of Nations at Leipzig in 1813 was my death knell. All Europe united against me: Britain, Russia, Prussia, Austria, Sweden, and dozens of smaller states. For 3 days, 500,000 men fought the largest battle in European history before Verdun. My defeat was total, my empire crumbling, my allies deserting. I abdicated at Fontainebleau in April 1814, kissing the eagle standard of my old guard before departing for exile on Elba. The man who had commanded from Madrid to Moscow was now sovereign of a Mediterranean island 12 miles long. Yet even in defeat, I was planning my return. My return during the 100 Days was pure Napoleon, impossible, dramatic, and ultimately tragic. Landing with 1,000 men, I reclaimed France without firing a shot, but Europe's coalition reformed instantly. At Waterloo, Wellington and Blucher combined to defeat me in my final gamble. This time, there would be no return. Saint Helena became my Prometheus rock, chained to a British island 1,200 miles from anywhere. For 6 years, I dictated my memoirs, refought my battles, and created the Napoleonic legend that would inspire revolutionaries for centuries. I died in 1821, aged 51, still dreaming of escape, still planning campaigns I would never fight. They buried my body on Saint Helena, but my ideas conquered the world. The Napoleonic Code governs legal systems across 4 continents: merit-based civil service, public education, religious tolerance, and equality before law. These were my true victories. I may have lost at Waterloo, but I won the battle for the modern world. I am Napoleon Bonaparte, the Corsican who became emperor, the artillery officer who redrew the map of Europe, the revolutionary who created the modern state. I proved that exceptional individuals could still change history's course, that talent could triumph over tradition, that even in defeat, some victories are eternal.